The Doctor works on a dilapidated K9 in the TARDIS console room.
Say ah. Ah. Laryngitis. How can a robot catch laryngitis? I mean, what do you need it for?
And already we detect a slightly jokier tone creeping into the series.
What are you doing here?
Regenerating. Do you like it?
Look, it's awfully nice to see you, Princess Astra.
Oh, he thinks she's Princess Astra from the previous season's The Armageddon Factor. Understandably so, as the newly regenerated Romana is played by Lala Ward, who portrayed the princess in the previous season, and so impressed the producers that she was drafted in to play the Doctor's companion after previous actress Mary Tam declined the offer to sign on for a second season. What follows here is a novel approach to the standard regeneration scene. The majority of Destiny of the Daleks, and indeed the majority of Season 17, was written by incoming script editor Douglas Adams, who had landed the gig after writing arguably the most successful segment of the previous season's Key to Time arc, The Pirate Planet. Douglas Adams is my favourite writer, and despite making many wonderful contributions to Who during his short tenure, of which I will get to in due course, not all of them were successful. His wry, detached tone that would later go on to coin such a distinctive voice for himself with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy could sometimes be at odds with the established tone of Who, pushing the series overboard into a sea of self-parody. This scene is one such case. Although it's an amusing idea for Romana to continually be trying on new bodies during her regeneration, as if she were seeking a partner's approval of a dress to wear preceding an evening out, it does fly in the face of established Who lore. Despite the Time Lord's ability to take on the appearance of others later becoming canon, nowhere is it established a Time Lord can try on several different bodies before making a conscious decision on the right one. An amusing Adamsian idea in and of itself, but a little out of place in the series as a whole. The TARDIS materialises in Winspit Quarry, Dorset. Sorry, I mean a mysterious alien landscape.
What's the place like?
Breathable atmosphere. High degree of seismic activity.
What?
Lots of earthquakes.
Oh, seismic. I thought you said psychic.
Sidekick?
Like it? I haven't seen it yet.
This one's not going to start taking itself seriously anytime soon, is it?
Right, let's see where we are.
Oh, look! Rocks!
See what I mean? They exit the TARDIS having decided to leave the dilapidated K9 behind. As a prop, K9 was notoriously difficult to operate and manoeuvre, and, as on this occasion, it was just easier to write him out of stories entirely. I mean, how would they have got him off that thing? They explore the alien wasteland and discover some signs of intelligent life and industry.
A composite material. Gravel in a binding of possibly limestone and clay.
Limestone and clay making.
Add water, cement.
Add gravel.
Concrete.
A little engineering lesson for you there, kids. They witness a burial performed by a party that appear to have been ravaged by the excesses of nuclear war.
Like the living dead.
What? Living dead? You mean a planet ruled by zombies? With one basic difference, the living are very much like the dead. Who was it said the living are just the dead on holiday? Never mind.
Well, actually, the quote is attributed to Belgian poet and playwright Maurice Maeterlinck, 1862 to 1949. God bless the DVD info track. They inspect the body. Whilst doing so, they witness an alien craft coming into land. Ooh, these 1979 visual effects look a bit ropey. Is there anything we can do about this? There we go, much cooler. On their way to investigate the landing craft, a series of explosions that would maybe leave their trousers slightly singed below the knees if they were directly on top of them start going off for no readily discernible reason. The Doctor and Romana flee into a nearby opening. At last, I was getting bored in the quarry. Here we go. Typical Who production design, check. Studio lighting, check. Shot and tape, check. This is the world of classic Who I feel most at home in.
Why explosions?
High-impact phason drills. Yes, someone's imported some high technology.
High-impact phason drills are now readily available from the online store technobabble.com. An explosion rocks the entranceway, and once again the Doctor is incapacitated under a barrage of polystyrene and wood shavings. Having the Doctor trapped, of course, gives Adams the excuse to regale us in yet more outlandish dialogue.
Can't a fella get any sleep around here?
Are you alright?
I don't know. I can't see all of me.
Don't go away, will you?
I'd rather hoped you'd resist the temptation to say that.
Romana makes her way back to the TARDIS with the intent of returning with K9 in order to assist the Doctor. And here we have the cherry on Adam's cake of outlandishness. Whilst the Doctor lies trapped, injured and in need of medical assistance, he decides he'll have a little read.
Origins of the universe. You got it wrong on the first line. Why didn't he ask someone who saw it happen?
You'll note that the book's title and author are The Origins of the Universe by Ulan Kalufid. Don't recognise the name? Well, let's have the guide itself fill you in.
This is the story of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. More popular than the Celestial Home Care Omnibus, better selling than 53 More Things to Do in Zero Gravity, and more controversial than Ulan Kalufid's trilogy of philosophical blockbusters, Where God Went Wrong, Some More of God's Greatest Mistakes, and Who Is This God Person Anyway?
Some have speculated that Kalufid was based on the eminent geneticist Richard Dawkins. Adams denied this, as when he dreamt up the character in 1978, he was unaware of Dawkins and his work. Incidentally, after a very brief marriage to Tom Baker in the early 80s, Lalla Ward would later go on to marry Dawkins after being introduced to her at Adams' 40th birthday. Say what you will about Dawkins, though the guy has never said a single thing I personally disagreed with. The fact that he was a friend of Adams, admirer of his work, and he married a Doctor Who assistant, makes him one seriously awesome dude in my book. As Romana nears the TARDIS, explosions rock the landscape, burying the TARDIS.
K9!
A mysterious figure follows her. After some more Adams-Baker business with the book, you'll probably be glad to hear that this little bit of business is put to rest when the Doctor is accosted by Earth, Wind and Fire. Sorry, I mean the Movellans. Romana returns, and after finding the Doctor absent, is accosted herself by her pursuer. Fleeing, she falls down a shaft and manages to render herself unconscious after tapping her head lightly on the studio floor. Meanwhile, on board the Movellans' disco ship... Wow, that is one awesome looking sleek white design for the ship's interior. The Doctor reveals he has no idea where the TARDIS has brought him to.
The planet is listed in our star catalogue as D5 Gamma Z Alpha.
Well, that's not much help. See, I'm terribly old-fashioned. I prefer names.
I believe the planet is called Skaro.
Skaro? What are you doing here?
Romana awakens. Hearing an ominous noise, she puts her ear to a wall of toffee glass in what could arguably be described as the series' quintessential wobbly set moment. She isn't moving. Romana is taken prisoner by the Daleks and placed in one of those science fiction glowing orb lie detector machines.
You will be assigned to Labour Force 2. Obey without question. Obey, 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 obey.
She's obeying! Jesus! The Movellans bring Romana's pursuer aboard for interrogation.
Starship Engineer Tyson. By my timescale, I was taken captive 2 years ago, and since then have been a prisoner of the Daleks.
Romana is set to work by the Daleks, whose knowledge of health and safety protocols with regards to the correct clothing attire for dangerous mine work is questionable at best. At least take the scarf off. Romana befriends a couple of slave workers who reveal that they have been subjugated after the Daleks attacked their ships and set to work down the mines.
Anyone attempting to escape, and the Daleks kill 5 of those remaining. Escape plans are not as popular as they were.
Wait a minute, I know that guy.
I followed you on many adventures into the great unknown mystery. I go first, indeed.
And yes, I know that's 3 Doctor Who vlogs in a row where I've managed to incorporate an Indiana Jones clip. Why this has been the case, I'm not really sure, but long may it continue as a tradition. Tyson informs the Doctor that Romana has been taken prisoner. The Doctor implores him for help in breaking into Dalek command.
I quite agree, Doctor. We'll go with you.
I think Baker's look here is meant to say, not dressed like that you won't. Romana collapses, having apparently died. Her inert body is stretchered away by the other prisoners. The Mavellans and the Doctor enter Dalek Main Control, a super advanced workstation. You know it's super advanced, of course, because it comes equipped with the standard issue 1960s Earth computer terminals. They discover a schematic.
This is the first underground level where we are now. That's the second. And if I'm right, the Daleks have penetrated to level there.
We must get down to level there to find out what's 3. But before he can elaborate on what, the Daleks return and lay chase. The Doctor, Tyson and the Mavellans return to the shaft.
After you.
No, Doctor, after you.
No, after you.
And here we have one of the most replayed moments from the whole of Who. Noteworthy for being the point the series first started becoming a little too self-referential for its own good.
If you're supposed to be the superior race of the universe, why don't you try climbing after us? Bye-bye!
So whenever any clever dick wishes to point out that the Daleks aren't an imposing threat because they can be defeated by a flight of stairs, us fans have to continually point out that A, the series is well aware of this fact and was pointing it out as far back as 1979, and B, because of said clever dicks, the series would later have to overcome this problem. Now I'm sorry, although this is canon now, I prefer to look the other way because it's even more ridiculous than giving R2-D2 the ability to fly. While it may be true that the Daleks, as established in the first 16 seasons of the show, would only be a malevolent threat to anybody on the same level surface as they were, I'd still rather the series just chose to ignore this fact, otherwise we wouldn't have ended up with this kind of silliness.
Time old science. It's bigger on the inside.
Once away, the Doctor discovers Romana's grave. Now, is it just me, or would this have been the ideal place to have Mary Tam's regeneration scene?
I thought you were dead.
Well, the only way to escape the Daleks was to feign death. It's lucky they didn't know I was a Gallifreyan.
Good girl. Gallifreyan?
Yes, they taught me at school how to stop my hearts.
Hearts? How many have you got?
One for casual, one for best.
Ah, a joke that comes from character rather than being meta. See, I'll allow that one.
Yes.
Where are you going?
Dalek hunting.
Now, if I'm right, there's a shaft in here the Daleks don't know about leading straight to the bottom level. If I'm right.
They enter the shaft in search of... what exactly?
How do you know how to get into this level?
Call it local knowledge gained a long time ago.
And off screen, as this set has never been seen before in any previous Dalek story. They investigate further, leading them to one of the most uninspired reveals in the show's history. What, no tumbling out of the shadows covered in cobwebs, no scream from Romana, no music sting? Just the dullest of dull establishing shots? It's such a matter-of-fact reveal for one of the scariest things ever put on British television.
Davros, the evil genius who created the Daleks.
He created the Daleks?
Yes. I could have stopped him.
Oh, this creature looks as though he's been dead for centuries.
Oh yeah, centuries. All the sure signs are there. Flesh still on the bone, clothing still intact. Tutankhamun was in better shape than this guy. Okay, the reveals may be a missed opportunity. However, they slightly make up for it with the cliffhanger to episode 2, which is suitably chilling. Another barrage of polystyrene and wood shavings cascade down, killing a guller.
Davros, you don't look a day older than I'd hoped you were dead.
Dead? I do not die.
Owing to the sad unavailability of original Davros actor Michael Wisher, here he is played by David Goodison. Goodison isn't terrible in the role, but comparing his performance to Wisher's is rather akin to recasting Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter with Neil Morrissey. Goodison has much more of an air of a cheeky rascal about him, rather than the portrayal as an intergalactic Hitler in Wisher's hands. The bizarre decision not to treat the base of the voice like with other iterations of the character was also a strange one. A true shame, because the prospect of Wisher's return in the role would have greatly elevated this serial had he been available.
Seek and locate. Do not deviate.
I'm a poet and I don't know it. The Doctor wheels Davros across the studio floor like a fairground worker on the waltzers, because apparently you're able to do that.
You will release me. You will return me to the Daleks.
Shut up or I'll switch you off.
They arrive at a shaft entrance covered in debris.
Shifting. Stand back.
Oh, don't strain yourself too hard, Doctor. And no, I didn't add that sound effect.
The corridor's full of Daleks. What? Then we're effectively boxed in.
He sends Romana and Tyson back to the Mavellan spaceship in order to mobilise a force to return and safely transport Davros back to their ship. They escape through the hatchway. I see Davros still possesses zero empathy for any living creature, as his chair remains giving the middle finger to the universe. Ooh, Baker's creepy goggle eye.
What do they want you for now, eh? What's so special about the Mavellans that they need your help again? Eh?
Name? Davros. Function? Creator of the Daleks. Species type? Mutant, humanoid.
Or indeed humanoid mutant, as it says up there on Davros's woefully sparse Wikipedia entry.
I saw you destroyed. The Daleks blasted you at point-blank range.
Ha! Synthetic tissue regeneration took place whilst bodily organs were held in long-term suspension. Until the Daleks' universal supremacy is accomplished, I cannot allow myself the luxury of death.
So, considering they turned on you and tried to murder you last time, why the sudden change of heart for both you and the Daleks this time around? After 5 centuries, they suddenly decide that they need leadership from the Creator, who only survived like a day into their creation, and you see no problem with going along with this, Davros, despite the fact that they probably still see you as an inferior species. What's to stop them turning on and murdering you a second time?
You will move into the open. If you fail to obey in 5 seconds, you will be exterminated.
Hold it. Now, tell them what I've got here.
He's holding a thermal detonator.
And one false move and it goes right down inside his chair. I'll turn Davros and his life support system into scrap metal. Now, spack off!
Spack off? Surely that's politically incorrect even by 1979 standards. Romana returns to the Mavellan ship to inform them of the discovery of Davros, only to find out that they are already aware of his existence.
You will remain here.
I'm starting to have my suspicions about this guy. In order to coax the release of Davros, the Daleks set about systematically executing their workforce until the Doctor complies, resulting in some of the most lackluster death scenes the series has ever produced.
Stop!
Ooh, what's going on here? The universe has obviously had enough of Davros's contempt. Look, they've tried to break his middle finger.
One more killing, and I'll detonate the device.
Self-sacrifice illogical, therefore impossible.
Self-sacrifice illogical, therefore impossible. And yet, spoilers.
Spoilers.
But in the very next episode, the Daleks are more than willing to strap bombs to themselves and kamikaze the Mavellan ship. The Doctor fits the thermal detonator to Davros's pod as he makes his escape.
All I have to do is squeeze my sonic screwdriver, and boom boom Davros.
He escapes through the hatch.
We'll meet again, Doctor.
Don't know where, don't know when.
Don't you be so sure.
Once outside, the Doctor, after a moment's contemplation, triggers the explosive. However, Davros manages to maneuver a couple of Daleks into position to take the brunt of the blast. So from this point on in the story, I guess the Doctor is effectively supposed to think that Davros is dead. If this series wasn't doing a good enough job already of emasculating the character, the lack of motorization on his pod meant that rather than gliding elegantly across the floor, he appears to be rather ungainly, pedalling ferociously. Yes, terrifying. The Movellans render Romana unconscious with their novelty Blackpool toys of death. And talking of Blackpool novelty toys, who remembers pots of gunge, eh?
Oh, a coloured mutant, of course. The Daleks were originally organic life forms. I think you just told me what the Daleks want with Davros, eh? Haven't you?
The Doctor meets up with Tyson and the Dalek. However, one of the Movellan party shows up just in the nick of time. They attempt to take Tyson and the Doctor prisoner. However, she doesn't bank on them employing playground bully tactics. Who directed these death scenes? This is not how you die, not in drama nor in real life.
Why did she turn against you? I'm not sure she was ever for me. What are you doing?
Yes, what are you doing, Doctor? No, this really isn't... Oh, I see, they're androids. Or at least androids powered by the inner workings of a child's vintage music box by the look of it.
Just as I thought. Just another race of robots no better than the Daleks.
Meanwhile, the Movellans set up a giant blender in the middle of the sandpit. Sorry, I mean the surface of Skaro.
How does it work? It changes the molecular structure of the atmosphere. The atoms become flammable.
So, it's a science fiction bomb. Later, Tyson and the Doctor discover the Movellans have placed an unconscious Romana in the giant blender. Unbeknownst to them, a Movellan armed with a primed Blackpool gun sneaks up behind them and renders the Doctor unconscious. It was a trap! Those sneaky Movellans! The Doctor tries to teach the Movellans rock, paper, scissors in an attempt to demonstrate why two non-organic races should not go head-to-head in battle, because the logic of one side will always counteract the other, owing to the lack of any human element. It's a similar scenario to the resolution of the 1983 Cold War thriller War Games, in which the computer Whopper realises the only winning move in nuclear war is not to play after running countless scenarios of the game Tic-Tac-Toe, or Noughts and Crosses for us British viewers, and eventually surmising it to be an unwinnable game. Here the game of rock, paper, scissors is used for the same storytelling means. However, the execution is slightly flawed. How does the Doctor know what move Shirelle will make and win out every time? It's great philosophy, but in practice it doesn't really work. Aside from the fact that the Daleks have a slight humanitarian advantage by having Davros as their leader, the outcome of any combat situation is more than likely going to favour the side with the greater armoury. Davros instructs the Daleks to attack the Movellan ship and arms them with explosives. Dalek suicide bombers? Now things are getting awesome. Tyson and a band of emancipated slave workers storm the ship and best the Movellans, freeing Romana and the Doctor in the process. The Doctor sneaks back down the mineshaft and finds Davros.
I didn't think getting to see you would have been so easy.
Or seeing you at all, as I'd assumed I'd killed you. No explanation is given to the Doctor as to how he came to survive his assassination attempt in the previous episode. Not that any is needed, as he doesn't appear remotely surprised to find him still alive. Davros reveals his plan to attack the Movellan ship with his Dalek fundamentalists. So all that talk of self-sacrifice not being a Dalek concept is completely ignored here, as we see them doing just that. Oh well, those red and yellow bombs are still a cool visual. The Daleks attack the Movellan ship with their whisks of death. Commander Shirelle attempts to detonate the sci-fi bomb, and Romana tries to stop him. Alright, a down and dirty fight in the sand with two actors obliterating their wardrobe. Apparently there was only one take of this scene done, as the budget was so tight it couldn't stretch to a change of wardrobe for the actors. The Doctor manages to evade his captors in one of the stupidest Dalek defeats in the history of the show.
Behind you! Behind you! Visual to your right! To your right!
The most formidable force in the universe bested by a hat.
Malfunction! Malfunction!
I mean, why?
Keep away. Keep back.
What is it with Baker and these arm wrestling scenes? Okay, I'm not entirely sure what happens here. Does Davros intend to flick this button? Oh well, at least we get some cool Dalek explosions to round off the story. Davros is imprisoned in, admittedly, quite a cool looking sci-fi cage.
It's a cryogenic freezer. Even you can't escape from a solid block of ice.
But, you know, he still will, because who's going to pass up the opportunity for more Davros stories down the line? The Doctor and Romana leave the Mavellan ship just before it takes off.
It's another escape.
Was that actually an escape? Surely you were free to leave by this time, the Mavellans having been defeated by the freed slave workers. They return only to discover the rocks they thought had buried the TARDIS, making it inaccessible, were simply painted polystyrene.
So the Felsider switches its computer off and does something irrational.
Wins the battle, yes. Make mistakes and confuse the enemy.
The only winning move is not to play.
Is that why you always win?
Yes, what?
Because you always make mistakes.
Mistakes, me? Well, I've lost a century or so. Well, I have made the odd mistake.
Not that switch.
What? Oh, yes.
And there we have Destiny of the Daleks, and I really don't care for this one. You can argue that it should be viewed as simply a generic Dalek runaround, but as generic Dalek runarounds go, there are much better examples from earlier seasons, and after the high benchmark of Genesis, this really had a lot to live up to, which it consistently fails to do in almost every respect. Terry Nation, creator of the Daleks and writer of nearly all the stories of the classic era, was busy at work on Blake 7 at the time of writing, and largely phoned in the plot, leaving Douglas Adams to write the majority of the dialogue. Although, as I said, Adams is my favourite writer, he was not a good fit for a Dalek story, their perceived dourness creating an abruptness of tone with his predilection for witty one-liners and irreverent humour. The Daleks are ill-treated. The bizarre decision to retcon them into being purely robotic creatures seems to be there simply to make the philosophical elements function, and this was not maintained as part of the canon from here on in. Michael Wisher is sorely missed as Davros. David Goodison is entertaining enough, but poor in comparison to one of the greatest performances in the show's history. I kind of see what director Ken Grieve was going for. The lack of score and having an almost permanent windswept soundtrack was obviously an attempt to create an air of post-apocalyptic dread. However, Genesis had an air of post-apocalyptic dread, but it still manages to remember it was supposed to be a fun family adventure first and foremost. Destiny forgets this, and it's just so dull, completely failing to come alive in several key moments. The concept of the Mavellans could have been an interesting one, but unfortunately their disco-inspired appearance is a major misstep from a design point of view. The only plus point really is the ever-reliable Baker, and Lala Ward as the incoming Romana Mark II. She's very sweet and likeable. There is good chemistry between this pair, and next to Sarah Jane, she was one of the finest companions of the Baker era. Yeah, I'm really not fond of this one at all, and the only way I can usually sugar the medicine after watching it is to go straight into the subsequent season 17 story, the masterpiece that is The City of Death. Believe me, after the dourness of this story, it's all sunshine and light from here on in.